I remember. It's funny. Every time I hear those words, having watched these videos as the series started, it always reminds me of a cozy fireside ring where everyone regales their joys and woes of time gone by. Can't help but think that when I started getting in my interest of Final Fantasy XIV, it was more around the idea of tales yet untold. Well, unfortunately that didn't quite end up being the case for a lot of it. You see, my tale of getting into the game alone was one of setbacks and losses. Like most others, I was needing an upgrade to my computer for the game to run properly, but the upgrades ended up going beyond the typical. Graphics card turned into hard drive, turned into operating system, a new power source. Needless to say, I spent a unreasonable amount of money upgrading the computer for the game, and that wound up biting me shortly after all the upgrades were complete and I was ready to start the game. The basement of the house I was staying in collapsed due to ground flooding, and my concern quickly went from having a computer ready to play a game that served as a great escape and an adventure to worrying about if I had a roof over my head. To top it all off, that was the final straw in a 7-year relationship with the woman who was my fiance at the time. So when it came about time for me finally to get things back together and to enjoy the game, I was too tired, too broken to be angry at the result of what was seen. It was another thing on the pile of things that were just weighing me down, and I just didn't have the energy at that point to complain. It was hard. It felt at that point everything had fallen apart, and for 14 to be the shamble that it was just seemed to fit with the theme at the time. I fell off from the game. I didn't get involved as I had wanted to, even though I enjoyed the leaves, the repeated quests, the idea of turning what would be a normal grind into a sort of mini-game was entertaining to me. But there just wasn't enough there, even though I had friends there that I played Final Fantasy XI with for several years, waiting, to play with me there. I just, with everything going on, I just couldn't do it. But I kept track for a good while there as to what was going on, and I never unsubscribed. After all, the game was free. There was really no point in not going back in. I remember shifting from character to character, trying to find some way of justifying my way in. Labra, the Kitty Axe murderer, trying to reincarnate Hyrist as a gladiator, but none of them really fit. So I waited. I figured, well, like my life, it just needed some time. Time to get things together, time to figure out where we were going. And it turns out that ended up being the case. They put this stranger to me up in charge of the game, and it was the first time I actually paused to take note of who was taking the head. After all, 14 was a symptom of what many people would thought was the decline of Square Enix in terms of games. And this approach, this idea that they were being contrite, it struck me as odd. It wasn't something you normally saw in the video game field. Mainly they would throw out a product, and if it wasn't good, they would throw it out on the rug and try to hand you something different to change your mind from the past before. the fact that Square Enix took the approach to make things right when they had gone so far wrong. First, I was skeptical. I didn't know who this person was, this Yoshida-san. He had a history that no one could seem to get right together at first, and no one really knew his background besides what he said, and I didn't know what to think at the time. It wasn't enough to get me really involved, not with what was going on in my own life at least. But as time wore on, and I began to notice more and more about the changes that he was doing, and the consistency in which he was keeping up communication, Yoshi P, as we all started to affectionately call him, he started to change my mind, and I started to try investing in the game again. I took a character that I had from back of my old forum role-playing days, Maria Lynn Celestine. Of course, you're only allowed a front name and a surname, so I went just with Lynn Celestine. I rolled her up in Gridania, and I started giving the game a chance right about the time that they were going to start asking for payment again. I had a year free that I pretty much squandered on and off, wanting to figure things out, and seeing the game again after the changes, it was a marked improvement. The game felt like it was gaining its footing again. But the biggest catch, the biggest way of getting me back into the game was what they told about creating a storyline into a realm reborn. A story that no one else anytime afterwards they would experience, and me being an old story hog when it comes to one Final Fantasy to the other, 6 being my absolute favorite, I was ready to experience something like that. So I joined up with my old friends again, and joined up with the guild that they had adopted into, which was the Old Timers Guild. Some of the nicest people you ever met again. They live by their code, which is all about the fun, none about the drama. And we ended up going through the different missions of the storyline as it advanced, and Dalamud started falling down. Never have I met a group that had made so much effort to make sure that in this period of time where we could never go back and do it again, where once we had completed it, there was no going back. The game was going to end, and a Realm Reborn would take its place. We made sure that everyone who wanted to advance, everyone who had the levels, the time, got it done. We all experienced that content together, some of us several times over, just to make sure that the fights were completed, that people got their successes. But more than just the guild, the community of Excalibur, the server I was on, they felt fairly united too, especially during the release patch for Castrum Novum, where the zone itself felt like a live and active battlefield, much like the cutscene that it was depicted. There were groups that were holding the areas of the gates so that the monsters weren't flooded at that time, and people could run through. The Fight United We Stand was possibly the most memorable one that I've had, the most enjoyable by far of 1.0 for me. And there were people that were helping strays get in during the first few days on that, and I was kind of aback by how together everyone felt, because everyone at that point was invested. Everyone at that point cared about what was happening to the game, what was happening to the people who were trying to experience the game, and I will never forget the way that was. When it all ended, when the servers closed down, we were all linked to the cutscene of Bahamut coming out of Dalamud, and that being the end of an era, I couldn't help but feel that weight again, that depression again. And I was surprised how much it had affected me. But I had grown attached. I had grown into a part of this large community of people that witnessed this world as it was going through its most painful of changes, and that we had all seen that together, and then it was done. It was over. There would be months before we would ever see Excalibur as a server again united, and I still maintained contact with the guild, but it wasn't the same without our avatars to express ourselves through, without the game to enjoy together. Our Mumble channel went dark for quite a while there. Even during phases 1 and 2 of the beta, we were fairly separate, with no real unified server to grab all of the people who were old on. We ended up picking Odin as a temporary home to make sure we could socialize and interact together. But it really was when Excalibur returned that the old-timers got back together and felt like a unified force again, and we explored together. We saw the burning walls, Sorelli, Kale, and I, and it was just breathtaking. And it was something again shared. And as we started to gather up again, we ended up having new members becoming more and more interested, and we had a meet and greet in which I felt was that warm experience of being a community again really struck me again, and that was the moment I was convinced that A Realm Reborn really was going to be a success, not because of the improvements in the game system or the play style, but because of this warm and united community that makes the game alive. And for those of you who are feeling hesitation in joining a legacy server, give it a shot. I know that even the most basic subscription to the game will allow you access to more than one character, and you can enroll them on any server you want, even if you're new. Roll on a legacy server and see the community for yourself. It has taken me from a very dark place, and it has brought me back into a feeling as being part of something again, and that is the most special thing I can ever say about this game, is how I had gone from such a bad place, with the game itself being in such a bad place, and through the persistence of its director, from the persistence and warmth of its community, it has turned something terrible into something amazing. And I can't recommend it any higher to join us and take a part in that. And even if it's not a legacy server, make sure you open yourself up to the people around you. My first success with Nailed Darkness, the final fight to kill a Raven of the 1.0 storyline, was actually with a pickup group. It was not with my guild. They were running at times I wasn't had access to, and I just wanted to get it done. The people that I ended up working with, they stuck it with me even when we were having difficulties in the fight, and I actually, the first note in my collector's edition journal from the 1.0 lists them. That I actually wrote this entry after Realm Reborn beta started, but I had their names down and I wanted to make sure that they got their recognition. As it is written in my journal, these 7 aided Lynn Celestine in defeating Nail Van Darnus in the fight to save Eorza from the threat of Dalamud and what was hidden within it. Amon Firebird, Kababa 13, Epirion Arke, Rohmillar Rel Filin, Varasan, and Zack Firewing. Though their attempt may have been for naught in preventing the calamity, the struggle and victory over such a powerful foe in Legatus Darnus shall never be forgotten. And I promise you, it never will. So join us up in remembering a new tale yet to be told in A Realm Reborn.